Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, Cybersecurity Awareness Training 101. If that's what you're looking for, you are in the right place. So we're just going to give a few extra seconds here now that we just started things to allow people to get connected here to the webinar. And hopefully we've got a good training session here for you, and hopefully everybody here is going to have at least one or more good takeaways from here that's going to help you, help your business, and so on. So, all right. Well, again, welcome, and we're just gonna jump right into things here. So this is who we have on the call today. So I'm Michael Shagru. I'm joined by Tyler Sanders and Rishwan Syed, who's our cyber expert. Say hello, guys.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. Let's keep things moving. You don't need to see our pictures. Yeah, so just a little bit about us. I mean, probably a lot of people on the call have already, who knows, maybe spoke to us in the past or know who we were. But if not, just real quick about PACE. We've been in business a little over 20 years. Our core services, proactive managed IT support, managed IT security, managed cloud services. We're an ISO 9001 business, really born and bred on process and procedure. And for the last 7 years, we've been a great place to work. So this is kind of what our structure looks like on the right. We provide all the basic elements. Most other IT companies provide all the reactive services, I call them. But most people want to work with us because we have a true proactive, several true proactive elements to our business. Look, if we haven't talked in a while, lots of great things happening at PACE. Would love to have a conversation with you, including just recently, we've combined forces with Vertex IT systems, which are specifically working with law firms and accounting firms. So Tyler, why don't you tell us a little bit about that end of the business?
Yes, so thanks, Mike. Vertex, I founded Vertex in 2008. I've been an IT consultant since the late 90s, primarily working almost exclusively, actually working with law firms and setting up even back then, Citrix and remote access types of solutions. Saw how unique the legal landscape was and how specific applications that law firms use and the unique requirements of a law firm. So really built Vertex to be able to service that industry, and have stayed very focused to that since 2008. Big part of our services have always been around security, and even more so over the last several years, cloud hosting, whether it's private or public. Having been so focused on the legal industry, it was natural for us to also evolve into some accounting, very similar types of practices with very similar types of requirements. So for the combination with PACE and Vertex now, it's really allowed us to have a great depth in our resource pool, given PACE that's legal focused, technical skill set, and more depth in our security.
Exactly. Makes us definitely a much more robust company, more resources, and undisputably, I think, the best option for law firms for sure. Anyways, so let's just keep moving here. If you've never been to one of our webinars, welcome. If you have, welcome back. But if you've been to any of our webinars, you know that we do keep copies and provide access to all of our previous educational webinars. If you go on our website, pacetechnical.com, under the media dropdown, you'll see webinars, and you can get free access back to a whole slew of topics from, the cloud, Microsoft Teams, cybersecurity, etc. So feel free to go and access any of those resources. So I can already see my camera's blocking a few things here, so I'm just going to turn my camera off now that everybody sees and knows what I look like. So our agenda today, pretty simple. We're going to take a look at the current threat landscape, maybe take a look at a few, the basic types of attacks, as well as some of the advanced attacks that we're seeing today that you need to be aware of. And then we're going to get right down to some cyber safety basics. You know, a lot of it may be a review, some stuff may be new. And then we're going to provide a few resources that you can take away to look at on your own if you like. And we're going to follow it up with, yes, a quiz. There will be a quiz. Don't worry, it's super simple. And then lastly, we'll wrap everything up with Q&A. But certainly at any time during this webinar, you can throw questions into the Q&A. We'll either answer them during the webinar, or we'll take all the questions at the end. So super quick, let's just start with, what is cybercrime? Really, any criminal activity carried out using computers or the internet. Pretty simple, but just a few, facts about it. And this, I mean, they're almost unbelievable numbers. 600 billion lost to cybercrime each year. Like, it's staggering. It almost doesn't sound real, but I know it's real because if you go ahead and search up the stats, and they're coming from reliable sources, that's what it is.
Well, and that's probably the reason, sorry to jump in, Mike, but probably the reason also most of you are seeing, massive increases your insurance premiums, because a lot of this has been on the insurance companies to pay, and they are no longer going to, just to insure you without meeting a certain set of security compliance requirements, and also making sure that they're covering up for this $600 billion in loss every year to cybercrime.
Exactly. And if you're in charge of insurance in any way for your firm, and you haven't had a conversation with your insurance agent regarding cyber insurance, I'd suggest you give them a call, because man, that is one industry that is changing. It has changed drastically over the last couple of years and is continuing to change. Insurance companies don't like to lose money, so they are tightening things up. Cybercrime as a service is something we're going to talk about. It's never been easier for people to become cyber criminals. Like, you don't even need a technical background anymore to be able to do it, because the resources exist for you to start up your business whenever you want. Super rapidly growing, and I can't even believe this statistic. It's on track to surpass the illegal drug trade in the next few years. Like, that is staggering in itself. And the last thing, on average, companies take over 6 months to notice a data breach. That's because the modern attacks are a little bit different. They're not just coming in, like a bull in a china shop, encrypting files and demanding money. They're getting in and, traveling around and going unnoticed for a long time. So starting out, why are we here? Why do we need to be doing training? Well, if you recognize this gentleman, the ex-FBI director, Robert Mueller, he said this a long, long time ago. Only two types of companies: those that have been hacked and those that will be. And I go to do a lot of events, hear a lot of cyber experts speaking. They're all saying the same thing, is that there is no 100% way to be fully secure. Nobody can do that. Pace Technical can't claim that any of our clients are going to be 100% secure, because the problem is these cyber criminals have always been one step ahead of us. So the tactic that we have to take now is we have to plan and prepare as though we're expecting an attack to happen. And we want to have the tools in place, but also the process and procedure in place that's going to protect us as much as possible. And God forbid that we have a breach of some kind, that we are going to minimize the potential damage that a criminal can have against us and our company. As much as we love the internet, and man, it's a great thing, communication for our businesses, keeping in touch, etc. A large portion of it, though, is existing to sell something to you, steal from you, manipulate you, or manipulate your opinion. Also, the obvious target of these cyber criminals is eventually your data. Like, that's really the goal that they're trying to get to, because that's what buys them the leverage to demand a ransom or whatever else that they want to accomplish. And the means of getting your data is by tricking you into giving your authentication. That allows them into your system, your network, or whatnot. And that's 100% the primary focus of these criminals right now. Yeah, as we all can see, like, we're getting hit with this, bait, and they're baiting us. They're trying to get us to click on something, download something and whatnot. It's not just email anymore. We've seen a big rise in what we call smishing, which is like phishing over text messaging. Also something that everybody needs to be aware of, but it's coming at us from all ends. That's another reason why we're here and why we need this kind of training. We need to constantly be looking at it and reinforcing these ideas to everybody in our business and as individuals. And the other thing is that, as I mentioned before, like, these cyber criminals are always one step ahead. A couple of years ago, I did a training webinar, and I came across in my research a company from the Ukraine that, when you looked at this company from the outside, they looked like any other business. They were about 200 employees. They were very well structured. They had an HR department. Employees had sick time, vacation time. They got bonuses. They had birthday parties, holiday parties, etc. Just like any other business. The only difference is this was a cybercrime organization. And interestingly enough, they didn't even start as a cybercrime organization. They started as a cybersecurity company selling antivirus. However, their product was not very good, definitely wasn't selling very well. So they got creative and figured out a way to try and generate some revenue. And unfortunately, it was through cybercrime. So they basically created this kind of scareware pop-up ad. So obviously people had to click on something on a web page. It was really easy to get this to pop up. You just had to go to the wrong web page, or even a good web page that just happened to have this pop-up. This didn't mean that somebody's computer was infected. This is literally just a pop-up message telling somebody, tricking somebody that their computer was infected and to call a number. If I had a nickel for the amount of times my mom called me because she saw a pop-up ad like this, I might have $10. Anyway, so people called this number. Certainly the person was very friendly on the other end and asked for access to their system, which obviously they obliged, to go in and look and see if their computer was infected. Guess what? Yeah, your computer was infected. And we can help you, we can fix this, and then we can sell you the software that's going to protect you from here on, their bogus antivirus software. So people paid whatever it was, a couple of $100, gave their credit card information, which then was sold on the black market, as well as they sold and infected their computer again to get a second ransom, maybe months down the road, and to spy on them and get some intel and whatnot. Anyways, this is what we're up against. Organizations, it's not just individual hackers, like fully formed companies, literally just with the intent of cybercrime. Even, countries are sponsoring, cyber groups to, create havoc with other companies. And a lot of people think, that's the next, type of warfare, cyber warfare. I mean, it already exists today. So what do they have to gain? Obviously, money is the big one. For some of them, fame, their 10 minutes of fame or whatever it is. Disruption, especially when you're talking about, if you were to go to the Canadian government's cybercrime website, it's one of the big notices and warnings that they have is the potential for disruption to infrastructure like water supply, power supply, our electric, hydro, things like that, that could be coming, from some of these organizations just to, disrupt and get a message across. And then obviously political reasons we've seen in recent campaigns, certain crime in the background trying to sway people. So I talked about, a little bit about, cybercrime as a service. This is one of the trends that we've seen. You can hire a hacker. This is how easy it is. You don't have to have any technical skills. You can just, pay a fee and hire a hacker to do the work for you. These are the kind of ads and it shows the rates of what it costs to hire somebody to hack a website, hack social media, hack emails, you know, even grade changes, you know, don't tell my kids that this exists. Although, yeah, I'm pretty sure they already know that this exists if they really wanted to do it. This is how easy it is to hire hackers. Also, I wanted to show you this. I mean, this is how simple it is. This is a page off the dark web. It's kind of like buying something off of Amazon or any other e-commerce site. You just figure out what sort of, you know, ransomware campaign that you want, add it to your cart and pay your fee. You know, in the old days, these criminals had to write their own emails, especially some of them in other countries challenged with English. You know, it was really easy to spot them, but now they've got English speaking people helping them, you know, write these campaigns. So the grammar is even very good. But everything from sending the emails, hosting the bogus websites that people are going to click on, all of those things are handled for you. You don't need to have any technical expertise. And that's the scariest thing about the landscape today, is that because of that reason, because anybody could be doing this, that's why it's going up, because there's desperate people across the globe that are desperate to make money, and they'll do anything. And this is one way to make money. So I wanted to talk about a couple of recent attacks and recent trends. This one happened back in July. It was called a man in the middle attack. And a man in the middle attack, it's not new. It's been going on for a long, long time, but it's just where you know, some sort of a hacker or criminal intercepts the communication between, let's say, you and you accessing a website. It could be your banking website. It could be Microsoft 365. I think this one was, you know, targeting people accessing Microsoft 365. But the interesting thing about this one, so it affected more than 10,000 organizations, and it also circumvented what's called multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. I'm sure most people on the phone here, or sorry, on the webinar here, whether you're accessing your bank or other sensitive sites, you know, you're going to get a code emailed to you or texted to you that you have to enter in after you enter your ID and password in order to authenticate on the site. Most businesses think, oh man, if I have this, we're totally safe, because even if the hacker steals our ID and password, they're never going to have access to this code, which is going to be sent to me. Well, this attack here proves that all wrong. And here's how it happened. Hopefully you'll be able to follow along with this, but basically this is all automated software actually that was created to carry out this attack. So the victim, you know, and the caveat to this is that a victim had to be tricked into clicking on a link in an email, which took them to a bogus site, which was recreated to look exactly like the Microsoft 365 portal. So the user thought they were logging into that portal when it was actually a bogus site. And the man in the middle, the criminal, was intercepting all the keystrokes that that person was making, including their ID and password. And what they did is they opened up the real Microsoft 365 portal, and the criminal entered in the ID and password. So if you have two-factor authentication implemented, what happens? Well, the code gets either texted to you or emailed to you, and that little message pops up that says type in the code. So the victim gets this little pop-up on the bogus site asking for the code. They type in the code. Now the hacker has the code and he enters it into the real Microsoft site, which now fully authenticated him on Microsoft 365, potentially even within the Active Directory, the security of that organization. And now he can go in and create all kinds of havoc. So for all those businesses that think, oh, we got two-factor authentication, we're totally safe. Unfortunately, this last attack proves that theory wrong. Did I miss anything there, guys? Anything to add there?
No, it's a very creative hack, and I know it's become a lot more common. And just going into the multi-factor or two-factor authentication fatigue that people are experiencing when you're just getting so used to, especially with Microsoft 365, it constantly popping up to authenticate, and you may have your mobile device, your computer, or a Citrix desktop, and all these different platforms are prompting you at times to authenticate in, that you stop even paying attention to the pop-up on the phone and you just click approve. And this is, hackers are leveraging this now to just send, try to phish your credentials. They're trying to log in. It just keeps prompting saying approve, approve, and people want to shut the phone up and say approve, and they've just allowed the hacker access.
Exactly. Yeah, that is definitely a big problem. Rishwan, anything to throw in there?
No, as Tyler said, obviously all these past MFA prompts are fatigue. People don't really pay attention. There are mitigations. Apple already had it where they show you what your login location is. You can add it now to the O365 MFA as well, where it'll show you where your location, but it also prompts you to add a code. I guess Apple has been doing that as well before Microsoft started it, but it adds on a second layer. For an example, you gave the man in the middle, like if you're sitting somewhere in a coffee shop at Starbucks in the US, but the phone is showing you that you're trying to do an MFA from Russia. Oh, that's that's a red flag that you need to keep an eye on. Again,
that's a huge red
education.
flag. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's the one thing. If we could say, I mean, you can't just glance at things anymore. I'm going to show you some more examples of how you can get tricked by just glancing at things. So, but just one more recent threat. And speaking of Apple, thanks for bringing it up, Rishwan. A lot of companies, have this strategy that they're going to buy all Apple computers for their people because Apple's, not really a target of criminals. It's harder to hack Apple systems. Well, in August of this year, there was a giant major attack on Apple systems and a big vulnerability. So not so much anymore that you're going to be safe with Apple. So looking at trends, spear phishing isn't new, but it is just becoming more and more prominent and more of a tactic by criminals. Instead of, the old shotgun approach of just sending out a whole bunch of spam and phishing emails and seeing who bites. Now they're just doing more research using social media, any other kind of media information on people, knowing who the players are in a company and being very, very direct with their phishing attacks. And that's getting them a lot more successful. So when we look at, cyber attacks, especially like kind of like ransomware attacks, just want to kind of give you an idea of what's new there. Like the old way of, ransomware attacks, a criminal would, prepare the email, send out the email, get some poor sucker to click on the link. And then the ransomware gets dropped on the machine, all the files get encrypted. And as soon as the encryption's done, the big message pops up that says, all your files have been encrypted. You need to pay this ransom right now. And it happened like almost immediately. So you paid the ransom. Sometimes you would get the decryption key, and sometimes the attacker just said, you know what, I want more money. But the new way, it's a little bit more complex now. So they're still sending primarily through email, but again, a lot more spear phishing and more direct targeted attacks on users. And then once somebody clicks on a link, it's not immediate to, throw that big message up to say, hey, pay the ransom. They're waiting and they're dropping some, light malware onto the system that'll go undetected. Then they're also dropping some tools on, certainly even the tools that we use and that cyber, experts use, like penetration testing tools. What better way to find the vulnerabilities within a network than to drop these tools in there? And then they're sort of looking around, seeing if they can get access to other systems. And lastly, they're going to try and extract as much data from that network and those systems as they possibly can. Again, that's going to be the leverage they're going to use. And only at the last minute, then, once they feel like they've exhausted all their resources, will they drop the ransomware and give you the message that says, hey, you owe us some money, pay up, or all your files are encrypted. And by the way, we stole them all too. So, if you decide you don't want to pay the ransom, we're going to go public with your information, your personal information, your client's information. I mean, we had this case recently of a company that called us up and they said that the, attackers were calling their clients because they got their client list and told their clients that, hey, if XYZ company doesn't pay this ransom, we're going to make all this stuff public, including your information. So it gets them a lot of leverage. Yeah, on average, they're spending about 95 days moving around inside of the network before they come and actually show their face. So they're stealing data mainly to use against you, against your clients. And then the public shaming is really the biggest thing. Now, you must know in Canada, if any personal information of any individual ever gets stolen in any kind of a cyber crime or cyber theft, you by law have to report that incident, which then makes, you know, the whole incident potentially going public anyway. So very, very important. So let's just jump into some cyber terms. I'm sure a lot of these are going to be familiar. Malware, which is, you know, just kind of the short form for malicious software, really any kind of malicious code that's designed to harm your computers, your systems, you know, used in the end to get access to systems, ransomware, etc. Speaking of ransomware, just a type of malware that, you know, they use to encrypt the data so you can't access it without the key. You got to pay the ransom before you get the key. Spyware is kind of lighter software that exists a lot of times. It lurks in the background, just sort of spying on you. Some of it is used to, you know, grab information, potentially grab credentials, spying you, you know, gaining intel. A Trojan, you know, just basically malicious code that usually comes in disguised as something else. So a lot of, you know, things like Word attachments in emails, Excel docs, PDFs. Sometimes it comes in as like, shows as like an audio file. You think that you're just listening to like a voicemail recording, and actually silently in the background, once you download or click on something, this Trojan is getting released onto your system, and it goes in silently as well. Virus, obviously pretty well blanket term for most malware that affects a system. A worm is a kind of virus, but it's a replicating virus. So it's designed to, once it infects one machine, to start going from machine to machine to machine within a network to try and gain access and infect as many systems as possible. A lot of people don't know there's two types of hackers. There's the good guys, the white hat hacker, and they're basically cyber experts, you know, and they're the ones that are trained to try and do mock attacks and things like that to try and find vulnerabilities. It's the bad guys, the black hat guys, that we want to stay away from. Phishing, obviously people know what phishing, generally it comes by email, but as I mentioned, now we're seeing a lot of criminals using text messaging. You know, they're basically just trying to attempt to trick you into clicking on something, entering in credentials, etc., maybe credit card information. It's all phishing. And then social engineering is really just the overarching strategy that they're using to trick people. So it's just a means of different ways via email, texting, or whatever that they're going to trick people into gaining credentials and thus access into systems.
Those are, Mike, just let me jump in there for a sec, if you don't mind, because I think those are some really important points. And you talked about the spear phishing too, and the social engineering, and really some of the big changes in these types of attacks is they're putting a lot more money, time, effort into researching their targets. So they're really starting to build some intel around the people they're going to go after. They're researching your websites. They're looking on social media. They're finding out, you know, who are the key people. If it's in a firm, who are the partners, who are the lawyers, if it's CEOs, who are they? And then they're going to try to understand more and more about those people. So when they're sending emails and plotting these attacks, they already know a lot about the people they're going after. So it's much easier for them to fool fool you because they've really, you know, crafted these emails or these campaigns or these attacks in a much more focused way. Historically, I mean, everybody could identify a fraudulent type of email. It was, you know, the grammar was wrong, the text was wrong, the spelling, everything was off. I mean, now,
Yeah.
I mean, these emails look authentic if they're trying to mimic a, you know, Microsoft email or a banking email. They look very authentic, but in addition to that, they're really now giving personal information. Examples, if they're trying to, if they understand, like maybe the CEO's out of the country now, and they know if they've researched who the payable person is in the company, they'll send emails. Hey, you know, hey Sue, I'm out of the country now. I need to make this transfer, and because they understand, you know, what's going on within the firm, who these people are, and who's away, who's at a trial. We've seen that where they attempt, hey, I know because they've already in somebody's email system watching it, and they can see that this lawyer is off at a trial today, and they're going to send an urgent email disguised as that person going to the payable person and asking for a quick wire transfer, something urgent like that.
Exactly. And we have some specific examples to show of that as well. But first, let's talk about passwords. So just wondering if anybody, like, you can guess in your mind. I don't have a specific poll question or anything like that, but just think if you can guess what you think the #1 password was in all of Canada for the whole year 2021. What was the most popular password? And I'm just going to jump right in and kind of show you the results, because these things are tracked with certain, you know, software and security companies. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 was the top password used in Canada in 2021. And you can see, I mean, of the top 10, I guess with the exception of Tiffany, I don't even know how that got in here, but whatever, I assume it's legitimate. QWERTY, ABC 1, 2, 3, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see the time it takes a hacker to crack these passwords. It's like really almost instantaneous. But still, you know, we're still seeing, as much as, you know, we and cyber experts are trying to really impress upon people the importance of keeping good passwords, we still see these as the most prevalent. Obviously, you know, people have a hard time, you know, remembering passwords and things like that, but, you know, we can't use that as an excuse anymore. There's lots of password management tools and things like that that can help us. So look, general rules around passwords, you know, it used to be 8 characters minimum, then it went up to 12, but our recent research shows 14 characters long is the new rule. Rishwan, I know you have kind of an opinion on that too.
Unmute myself. Yeah, essentially, if you move to the next slide, I can talk about that. So if you look at this, this is essentially, imagine going into Best Buy, buying a gaming computer that a lot of kids like, and brute forcing, that is just trying every single combination of characters on a machine and finally discovering their password. And if you look at this, essentially, if we followed the old 8-character recommendation that used to be the Microsoft default at one time, in 39 minutes, every single combination, every character that you could put in, it would be hacked. Whereas if you look at a 14-character password, don't add anything, just small letters, no capitals, no special letters, nothing. That will take them 4 years to crack. So this essentially what we're trying to display here is adding length is more important than adding more and more complexity. So yes, you should add complexity. 100% just makes it more and more harder for the bad guys to get it. But at the same time, length is more important than characters. Sometimes I know a lot of people say that, hey, I have 8 characters, I have everything, all the complexities turned on. Why do I need longer passwords? My users complain. But in fact, it is the longer password that is more secure than a more complex, even if it's gibberish, 8 characters can, like it says, 39 minutes, you'll have all the possible passwords.
Yeah. So I guess bottom line there, Rishwan, size matters when it comes to
Yeah,
password.
passwords.
Yeah. Anyways, just another few, combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. Even though you can get away without it, certainly we still definitely recommend that. At least one uppercase, like those common things. Not using common information, like I don't use this form of Michael, but like it's just an idea and a suggestion that you could have of replacing some letters with symbols and things like that. Not using the same password twice, not sharing passwords, and please, I don't want to walk by people's computers and see sticky notes on their monitor or on their keyboards or whatnot.
Rich, you had a good point earlier today when we were speaking that it's more because obviously the longer the password is, the more frustrating it is for users to change with increased frequency. So you were suggesting it's more important that if you go to a 14-character password, you can actually decrease the frequency in having to change that password because of the complex, or because of the length of it, kind of mitigating that need to change it every 3 months or maybe even 6 months. So it's being able to stretch it out a little longer by having a longer password, and there's more security in that.
Correct, Alvin. You absolutely brought a good point. Having a 14-character password and having people change it every month or 3 months is not making it more secure. It's actually making it less secure, is what the latest research shows, because people tend to make their passwords very simple at that point. Whatever they can get away with without hitting your boundaries, whatever they are, shouldn't have certain continuous symbols or whatever it is. They'll choose the simplest password, and then the next password that they change in 30 days is just going to be a variation of that old password. Once somebody figures out that combination, they're going to try to attack it that way. It's and Mike might talk about later, when you have a breach and people steal your passwords and they post it on the internet, they try to get as much money out of as they can out of you. Then they just post it on the dark web, try to sell it. After they've done selling it, they just dump it there. So anybody can go scrape the dark web and find passwords you used in the past, right? If you have a tendency to let your users use the same password frequently, it's just going to be a variation, and somebody's going to pick up that password, try every variation to it. Like I said, adding 8 characters, trying every combination with your old password, somebody's going to hack in. So it is definitely, you can increase the period. It makes it safer rather than not.
Yeah.
So people don't keep using the same password, making it simpler to remember. So they're just using simple words.
Yeah. Look, any more questions about that? Certainly you can ask us or talk to whoever helps you manage your IT systems for more help there. All right, let's move on to email. So, the most common form of attacks generally revolve around what we call spoofing, and spoofing is just, disguising, whether it's a display name or spoofing via a lookalike domain. As an example, instead of paste technical with TECH for technical, it might be TEKNICAL, something like that. Changing one letter or something like that. At quick glance, you may not notice the difference. And then what we've seen recently, and I have an example of this via display name and via disguising the display email address. So I wanted to show you some real life examples. I keep a little folder anytime I get some of these, phishing emails. I like to hold on to a couple of them just to show as examples. So this was a legitimate email that came. Now you can see that I've doctored it up quite a bit and did some cutting and very rudimentary cutting and pasting on here. This is not how the email looked like. I mean, it was very legitimate looking. I just changed the names to protect the innocent. But this did come from, a person at a law firm who I knew the law firm very well. So at first glance, I was like, oh, What are they sending me? Yeah, I wasn't, purchasing a home or expecting, a title and purchase agreement. So, that was the first thing. But when I first saw this email come in, obviously what we all look at is the display name. Who is it coming from? And now what we're taught is, okay, well, make sure the display name, but the email address that it's sent from, which is usually the second thing that shows up in the display area. And it's usually showed in these, single brackets that lets you know what the email address is, so that, quickly at a glance, you can see, oh, is this the right person? And is this their email address? Both of those things to me said, yeah, this looks legitimate. But then in my preview pane, I saw this other little bracket here, and I was like, well, what's that? So of course I double click this email. And when you open it up, now I can see, hey, there's another email address here. So what this hacker did, and he was very smart, in any email software, you can make your display name of what an end user will see when you send an email. You can make it anything you want. Everybody has control to change that. So this person not only changed the name, but also next to their name, they just added these brackets and the legitimate email of this person. So that if you only looked at it in the preview pane, you would see the legitimate name and legitimate email address. It's only when you open it up further that you actually see the real email that this came from, which is virjatest74@gmail.com. Obviously bogus, right? Or something a hacker just used at the time. But again, if you're glancing and just looking at things, now I wasn't purchasing a home, but if I was a lawyer, or if I was working with a lawyer, especially this law firm, and somebody was sending me a document, who knows, maybe I'm just even real curious. Hey, what's in this PDF? This is the way people are being manipulated right now. So again, that's very, very important. If you're ever curious, if you double click on the sender's email address, it'll open up this window and just show you what was the email address that this was sent from, and we can see that it's a bogus one. So that's one example. Here's another one. This is really just preying on, especially during the pandemic, and I mean, even still now, lots of people are still using and very used to using Zoom for meetings, Teams. We see a lot of these spoofing and phishing campaigns around Teams themed. And so this one, again, preying on trying to be there at the right time with the right person. Maybe you did just miss a meeting earlier that day or the day before or something like that. You might think, oh, crap. And if you see at the bottom here, sense of urgency, Zoom will only keep this message for 48 hours. It's got the Zoom logo. If you're just glancing at things really quick, you might be like, oh boy, I better click on this before they delete it. Again, just being very vigilant. Another one, you can see it's just a super generic, the admin team, but don't be fooled by any things that say admin or whatnot in them. Again, you just have to keep looking a little bit closer. Here's an example of that, what I mentioned, domain name. So this one is login instead of Microsoft, it's MCRSFT. Again, glancing at it super quick, the login screen here looks exactly identical to what you'll see on Microsoft. Yet, again, you have to look up in that address line and see, is this real? Is this not real? So business email compromise, we talked about it earlier when the number was like 43 billion or some crazy number like that. Literally just with this tactic alone, spoofing is definitely a part of it. So it's really just, any kind of target to defraud the business, via email. One of the most common types, CEO fraud. So if there's any financial people on this call today, I'm sure you must have had at least phishing campaigns that you probably didn't click on, at least I hope you didn't, of somebody pretending to be the CEO or president or owner of a business requesting that you transfer some funds. If you haven't, count yourself lucky. But that's basically what the CEO fraud is, somebody impersonating someone else. They don't even have to have access Again, they can use the spoofing to try and disguise themselves to look like it. They can use some spear phishing and a little bit of research. Look at somebody's social media profile to see, hey, the CEO's on vacation because he just sent a picture from Hawaii. That's the kind of intel that these people are using. Account compromise, really just trying to create fraud, requesting payments to vendors, other, vendor type accounts. Hey, pay this bill. False invoices, kind of along the same line, just sending invoices. Like, there's hackers out there, that's all they do, is they just send out a whole bunch, and they're hoping that the accounts payable person is just really busy, and maybe this invoice or the company name is going to look real similar or familiar, and they might just think, oh yeah, all right, I'll pay it, and just keep going. They're not looking too close at it. Attorney impersonation, law enforcement impersonation, those kind of things of authoritative figures that makes you think, oh boy, I better respond to this or click on this or download this or whatever the case is, and just tricking people in that light. So things to look out for, especially high-level executives asking for unusual information, request, hey, just keep it between me and you. Don't tell anybody else. I'm embarrassed that I forgot this, things like that. Requests to bypass normal channels that you would follow. Language issues, unusual date formats in these requests. Email domains and reply to addresses that just don't match the sender's address. All things that you need to watch out for. Couple examples. Hey, Fred, I need you to make the wire transfer ASAP. Things like that. Hey, do me a favor. There's a pending invoice. I'm on holiday. I need you to take care of it. The deadline is today, so make it a high priority. All those things in sense of urgency added in there. Yeah. Hey, forward me your WhatsApp cell number. Wait a minute. We don't use WhatsApp. Why would I? Yeah. So just thinking about those unusual requests, unusual means, bypassing normal channels, things like that you have to watch out for. So let's just jump into some super basics around email. Again, just as a refresher, always checking the email address and the display name, and don't be fooled by just the display name. Make sure you can see the real email address that it's coming from, not just glancing at what they're providing as a display. Checking the subject line. Is it suspicious? Is it unusual? The to address, I get lots of these phishing attempts to our, sales at Pace Technical or our info email accounts. They still come to me, so make sure that somebody's actually directing this to you and not just, grabbing an email address off of your website, which anybody certainly can. Always being suspicious of every attachment, for sure. If you ever, happen to click on something bad or make a mistake, click on something, download something, always immediately contact your manager, your IT department, IT manager, or whatnot, immediately. Official logos, you can't be fooled by them, whether it's Microsoft, Zoom, etc., like I showed you in some of the examples. Is it your name in the greeting, or is it, dear kind sir, or dear sir, something super generic? You always have to have your backup with those. Is there a sense of urgency? Is somebody trying to pressure you into doing something? Checking the body for, bad grammar. If you have to click on a link, make sure you hover over it first. You may have software like we provide for some of our clients, which actually protects them against clicking on some of these links, and it kind of masks the address. So you may or may not be able to do that, but I think Rishwan is his preference is always, especially when it comes to sensitive things like banking or logging into a financial site, a credit card site, or something like that. Never ever access those sites by clicking on a link. Always just open up a web browser, type in the address directly. I know sometimes it's convenient to click on a link, but it's also very convenient for a cyber criminal for you to click on that link too. So always checking that. any checking for a suspicious signature, from the finance manager, from the admin department, the admin team, the security team, things like that. And if anything looks suspicious, just delete the email. If it's that important, somebody will get a hold of you. Or if you think it's important, call that person directly and just ask them outright, did they send that to you? Some other general safety tips, not oversharing on social media. Again, this is a tactic that people are using, especially you don't want to be, putting out the information that could be answers to your security questions, or using security questions that, the answers may be available sitting on the wide web, whether it's LinkedIn or your Facebook or, other kind of social media accounts. Not reusing passwords between websites. Look, this is a common tactic among criminals. Once they get your credentials once, they're going to put it in a piece of robotic software that's going to just try all over the globe to see where else that ID and password combination might work. I know it's really hard, but the use of a password manager can definitely help in this case. Always being skeptical.
Let me just pause you there quickly, because we do have a question about recommended password managers. So maybe Rizwan, you want to give some recommendations?
There are many good ones out there. Don't endorse one over the other, but LastPass is a very popular one because it's just simpler to use versus the others. 1Password is a good one. Keeper, and there are several others out there. Depends on what meets your need. Usually people, especially for home use versus just distinguishing between home and office use, a lot of people prefer LastPass because it allows you to auto-fill your password in. So if you have it in LastPass and you open up a browser, it'll fill it in for you and you can move on. It is a functionality available with others as well. But it's always good. Yes, you have a password manager, but don't leave that unguarded as well. Like having a simple 8-character password on a password manager isn't the greatest thing.
Exactly.
Right. So you can have one strong password set up for that and also have MFA on your password manager.
Exactly. Definitely good tips there. Some more, being skeptical of unexpected invoices. Please don't pay for anything using gift cards. That's would be such a, your business is never going to ask you to pay for something with gift cards. Law enforcement, the CRA will not want you to go to convenience stores to buy gift cards to get you out of trouble. That is not how it works. But we've obviously heard in the news of lots of people getting fooled into that. We talked about smishing, which is phishing over text messaging. So we're seeing that on the rise. I did a screenshot of, this is actually one from my phone, from Amazon. There's a whole bunch of other ones like the CRA. You'll get a whole bunch of them. Look at it, 9999999. That's got to be a suspicious number to be sending you a message. There's a whole bunch of other ones out there. Again, you just got to be careful and do not click on these links in there. Again, go directly, if it's an account issue, go directly to your account. Public Wi-Fi, again, if you need to use it, just be sure you're not going to be use it for any kind of banking, any kind of shopping, entering credit card information. Again, this is a prime source of man-in-the-middle attacks. People put fake Wi-Fi access points or gain access to Wi-Fi access points and are able to see, transmissions going back and forth because it's open and it's not encrypted. So people can intercept that information going back and forth. Other general tips, like at your home, if you have, your home router, a lot of them come with just basic passwords. A lot of us are all working from home now, so at least occasionally. So definitely changing from the basic password that they give you with the system to, again, something that's, more complex for sure. And then being aware of malvertising. So, it could be legitimate sites that you're on, but the advertisement that pops up to the side there could have something malicious attached to it. Again, be super careful at what you click on and what sites you visit and whatnot, because it could have something nasty hidden behind it. And then just finishing it off here. Yeah, checking and not clicking on ads that seem fishy, only interacting with well-known sites, but also confirming by looking at that address line that you're not, on an illegitimate site. Being cautious with anything you download off of the internet. You got to be super careful about that. And then not clicking on links within an email. Again, go directly to the website. I know it takes a little bit longer. It's not as convenient, but can save you in the end. So as far as a couple of resources, this is one I really like, and it's the government site. I mean, there's hundreds of places you can go for cybersecurity information. I find a lot of them are self-serving, trying to sell you something, whether it's software or services or things like that. But the government site is just basic information to keep. And the other thing I like about it, it has both information for keeping a business safe, as well as it has a lot of resources for any of you, just as individuals in your own home and personal environments, how to keep yourself safe. So cyber.gc.ca is the address there. And then on our own site, pacetechnical.com, under media dropdown, if you go to our blog, we have lots of articles, videos, and things like that, tips about staying cyber safe. So utilize that resource as well. All right, so it's quiz time. I'm going to pull up the quiz, and in the midst of the quiz, maybe let me just see if I can pull this up here. There we go. I'm going to launch this quiz. It's pretty, I mean, there's only 5 questions, so I'll take a quick minute here and see how you do there, and then I'll ask Tyler and Rishwan if there was anything more that they might want to add while we're taking a minute or so here for people to go through the quiz.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd really add that we haven't covered off on is just one. I mean, it's everybody's responsibility, and within a business or a law firm or accounting firm, really developing a culture of security awareness and making sure everybody understands that responsibility, and ideally having it come from the top down. A lot of, for instance, office managers struggle to get the managing partners and partners in the firm to buy into really taking on that responsibility. And it has to be, because you're only as good as your weakest link. So if only a few people are vigilant in this, I mean, you're opening up your business and your firm to this type of risk. So getting more and more people to buy into it is the easiest way to really protect.
Yeah. Rishwan, any other final thoughts?
I think I'm just going to echo what Tyler said. It's a great closing thought. Tools are great. There's a lot of things you can put in for security that is automated. It'll help you in a lot of ways. But as long as a human is interacting with it, they are going to be the weakest link, and awareness is really the only solution. Making sure they know, and Tyler made a great point, has to be top down, has to be coming from the firm leadership. Otherwise, we can keep reminding them, but if nobody's going to pay attention, it's not going to help anybody to a point where something bad does happen and you're left with, I mean, the stories are on the internet. I don't know how to describe them.
Yeah. Okay.
And not being overwhelmed by it. Like, you don't have to do everything at once. Every little thing that you do helps, right? So when you look at, to become very secure, there's a lot involved in that. But that's a progression, work your way through it. Start with, the easier things, cybersecurity awareness training, having, the right core set of tools in place, and then over time you start to add on to that. But don't not do it because it seems overwhelming, or not take it seriously because you think it's not going to impact. We're a small firm, we're a small business. It's not really going to they're not going to come after us. I mean, that's just completely false and wrong mindset.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, in the instance of time, I know we're at the top of the hour. I'm not going to share the results of the quiz, only to say that everybody got it 100%. So either you guys are super well informed or we did a fantastic job training you today. But that's great to see that that we all got 100% on it. So that's fantastic. So look, if there's any questions that you have right now, you can certainly pop them in. We'll stick around for another minute or so to see if any questions come up. But you know, if you think of something after you want to ask us a question, certainly you can email us, sales@pacetechnical.com. If you're, you know, in charge of IT for your business, certainly, and haven't had an assessment done in a while, we'd love to come in and try and give you some help, maybe a different perspective on how you're doing things today, the kind of results that you get and whatnot. So certainly get in touch with us by email, and we'd be happy to help you out if we can. So it looks like we're pretty well done here, and I don't see any questions coming in. So I guess we'll leave it at that for now. And again, people can get a hold of us at another time. So I want to thank everybody for coming and participating today. Hope you all got something out of it, some good takeaways that'll help keep you a bit safer. And stay safe, and we will wish you all the best. Okay, bye everyone.
Thanks, everyone.